Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Aha! I gotta unmute. Well, here I am. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today's Wednesday. It's October the 23rd. Wednesdays, I like to have weird Wednesdays if possible, and luckily God obliges very often. We often get very weird things happening on Wednesday. We're going to have a ton of fun with today's exercise in stupidity. We've got Democrats shooting reporters, proving that even though you might be a Marine, you might be an Air Force light colonel. If you're a Democrat, you probably don't know what to do with your firearm, and you're going to end up getting somebody hurt. Thanks to Tim Walz for showing us that earlier. He didn't know how to manipulate his shotgun. Now we got Adam Kinzinger and Josh Hawley's Senate challenger deciding to shoot steel at a very short range and ending up with Spall hitting the arm of a reporter. That's an interesting choice. We got Tim Walz unironically not realizing that Elon Musk probably has a better sense of humor than him, calling him a dipshit. Sorry about that, but that's actually what the words were. We're going to quote it right there. We'll play it for you later, so you're going to hear it more than once. And somehow Barack Obama can't figure out how America got so divided and so toxic. Brother, do you own a mirror? Is the only question we have. Got a little bit more of the town hall stuff from yesterday that we talked about with Liz Cheney, the daughter of the Sith Lord Dick Cheney, the person that Democrats used to know was their enemy. Fun stuff. And apparently Tucker thinks that Tim Walz is gay, which hard to argue with his argument. We'll play some of that too. And lastly, Donald Trump is literally Hitler. That's where we're going today. What a day. Yeah, it's going to be weird this Wednesday. Let's get started by saying thanks to my buddies over at Catholic Vote. If you guys want some more serious news, they did a pretty good job with serious news. They did a lot of pro-life stuff on today's loop. Joe, check that out. It's catholicvote.org/loop. Catholic Vote, just spelled out, .org/loop. You don't have to be a Roman Catholic like I am to enjoy the content they throw out there. It's solid. The news reporting is very good. Their aggregate service is outstanding. Check them out. If you're interested in faith, family, freedom, at Catholic Vote on social media, they've got a handful of really good videos that they play out, and you guys will appreciate it. If you're not following them, do me a favor. Follow them. I know many of you are not because some of you follow me. Some of you follow me are not there because they've got smaller numbers than me. So there you go. All right, let's get into it with this one. Just found out as I pushed the button that says start the stream. I got this from the YouTube folks. Kyle Seraphin looks like pandering the final days of the campaign from Monday. That was like this Monday, the 21st of October. Episode 412 didn't follow the community guidelines. We need to keep it safe. We had to remove it from YouTube. We've got a strike. We are not streaming right now on YouTube. We are just going to be sending the data and it won't go anywhere. I can't upload anything. And what was that? It was because of misinformation, folks. Do you remember that episode, Pandering the Final Days? What we talked about was that Kamala Harris is demonic, and it wouldn't surprise me if her next stop was at the Satanic Temple. Now, we had an AI-generated thumbnail, or at least partially AI-generated, showing her at a fake satanic temple, and it's not actually Kamala Harris's picture. That has been marked as misinformation, content that has been technically manipulated in a way that misleads users and may pose a serious risk of egregious harm, which is not allowed on YouTube. That is the thing that we often talk about here. It's a good thing we're talking about Democrats potentially being gay. This is some really weak stuff. This is the faggotry that I think the Pope talked about. You could tell I'm riled up today. I got less sleep than I wanted. I spent a bunch of time answering a bunch of people yesterday talking about this the shooting situation. So let's get into the next story, which is that obviously Joe Rogan is the worst person in America. Maybe one of the worst people ever. This is a claim by a news article or whatever you want to call this propaganda piece. Breaking news from Washington and beyond. The New Republic is the name of the outfit. And they're very upset because yesterday the headline comes out, Donald Trump cancels all his events in favor of one of the worst people ever. That's literally Hitler, Donald Trump, sitting down with one of the worst people ever. How could you miss that? How could you miss the time when DJT will sit down with Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan to the left is the worst. And why is that? It's really, really obvious. He has an enormous audience. He connects with people that don't care about politics. He asks questions that are decent. He swears more than some people on the Christian right are interested in. But Joe Rogan is willing to meet, talk, and just ask simple questions that he's curious about. He's like a really interesting, intelligent guy. And what's funny is, I may actually throw this up on the Locals channel. If you guys aren't following us on Locals, go to kyleserafin.com and join up there. But I'm going to throw it on the Locals channel. I found this old interview before podcasts were a thing, before anybody had thought about doing what Joe Rogan does, which obviously he's the biggest in the world. He's talking to, what's that guy's name? Green. It's not Tim Green. Who's the comedian? You guys have to tell me in the chat. He's talking to that Canadian comedian about, wouldn't it be interesting if we could bypass all the censors, bypass all the advertising agencies, monetize a place where we just sit down and ask real questions. Tom Green, thank you very much, Eric. Our moderator in the chat, Eric Jason, go ahead and hook me up with that. Tom Green, and he sit and talk about, we're going to go to the internet and we're just going to talk to people and nobody can stop us. We're going to go direct to the consumer. And if we could find a way to make money doing it, wouldn't that be amazing? And who does it in the biggest way possible? It's Joe Rogan. And that makes him one of the worst people ever. Let me give you a little taste. If you've never listened to the Joe Rogan show, they just, they cut up, they smoke weed sometimes, they drink booze. He asks serious questions. He has Alex Jones on when he's drunk, when Alex Jones is drunk. They go for hours, right? Like, Joe Rogan made the long form podcast a thing. But he also is kind of goofy and silly sometimes. He's just like comedic. But he also makes fun of Kamala Harris. He has people on that call her retarded, and he doesn't refute that. I'm sure that must infuriate them. This is Joe Rogan just laughing at Kamala Harris being a fool, saying that you can never say Merry Christmas. And then, of course, you know the end. Anyway, enjoy this one.
How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
Merry Christmas, everyone.
He also had Alex Jones on, which is on my soundboard.
I'm kind of retarded.
Yeah, he'll just do things that make sense. So that makes him one of the worst people ever because he's willing to sit down. He's not going to have more mainstream news. And why would you go to the mainstream media if you're Donald Trump? Why? Under what circumstances would it make sense? I watched this cut up the other day, the first interview he did, or one of the last ones he did with 60 Minutes. It's absolutely atrocious. She comes in and she goes, "Are you ready for the tough questions?" And he goes, "Well, you never asked Biden tough questions, so maybe treat us the same." And she was like, they're terrible. It's so nonsensical. And maybe it's because they're used to being able to stage one side and attack the other. That's why they have to hate Joe Rogan. That's why they hate anybody that's going to say things that are true. They operate in a fundamentally untrue space. Yesterday, we played a little clip of Liz Cheney talking about Kamala Harris being the kind of person you'd hire to be your babysitter. Okay? I mentioned that it was all performative. What I didn't realize is they actually said it was a performance at the beginning. I'm going to go to Red State for this one. This is actually quite good. This is written by Bonchi. If you don't go to Red State very often, put it on your list, visit it once or twice a week, get some good information there. They cover different stories. They've got some good writers over there as well. On Monday, Kamala Harris held a town hall with Liz Cheney. Things started off badly after the moderator, Maria Shriver, came out and told the audience that all the questions were quote unquote predetermined, aka scripted. So Bonchi says, on my initial write-up of the event, it focused on the broad stroke of how stupid it was for the campaign to embrace Liz Cheney. It extends well past that. Kamala Harris has this strange penchant for cracking herself up. And obviously, it's caught the eye of the Trump campaign. They play a little clip of her just saying weird. She's so ready to explode with laughter because she's so awkward and strange. I like the way that Bonchi explained it. He said, Harris has theater kid syndrome. We've got two of them running on that ticket. Tim Walz is the other one. Because she's so laughably inauthentic as a politician and molded and handled by a group of handlers, she has a tendency to go overboard. When she gets in front of the camera, she's playing a role, but she's a terrible actor. And immediately that becomes obvious to anyone watching. That's what we're seeing. I think he nails it right down the middle. She's a bad fake because she's always pretending, and every once in a while, the awkwardness of doing that, the nervousness comes through. That checks out to me. She has no ability to remain in character. It leads to the odd trend of her randomly laughing at things that are not funny. If you've ever been in really crazy, serious situations, people tend to do strange things when adrenaline hits them and they're panicking, and inappropriate laughter is one of those things. So that's kind of fun. I'm going to play you this little clip side by side. The thing that I didn't realize, first of all, I didn't realize that it was actually scripted. I just believe that these things are scripted in so much as, they're not real. They're performative. I didn't know that they were actually predetermined scripted questions. And so she was literally reading off a teleprompter, which is something he brings up later on. Bonchi just is like, there's places where a teleprompter is appropriate if you're given a speech. It's usually not when you're standing in front of the pulpit of a black church where you're supposed to be speaking with the Spirit and speaking extemporaneously, but that's not a thing she can do. And then you get that kind of idea, that moment side by side where we've got Liz Cheney faking. I threw this up on social media. I put it on the local channel for those of you to enjoy. The goofiest thing is Liz Cheney's voting record. Liz Cheney cannot run away from the record that she voted because she's no longer in Congress. So she can't change this. She voted with Donald Trump 93% of the time. But now she's going to go on the track that he's literally Hitler. Anyway, enjoy this little cut here that I put together. It's side by side of her simultaneously just doing a reverse 180 and going back the other direction.
I will just end this by saying, and I also know, because I have spent time with Vice President Harris, because I have come to understand what she believes about how she will govern, that she will be a president for all Americans, that she's committed to listening and committed to having viewpoints, some of which, come from different ends of the political spectrum. And if you think about how you conduct, your life outside of politics, how we all conduct our everyday lives, those are the kinds of people that you trust. Those are the kinds of people you can work with. Like if you wouldn't hire somebody to babysit your kids, you shouldn't make that guy the president of the United States. That's
as somebody who is a centrist. And in one fell swoop here, he has put somebody on the ticket whose voting record in the Senate is to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And it's very clear. She is a radical liberal. She's somebody that has said we ought to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all. If you look at her record as well in California, she did, in fact, essentially ban gun sales with executive action.
Okay, so how do you go from saying that she's a radical liberal, that she wants to do tyrannical overreach with executive actions like she did in California, to saying that she's the kind of person that you would babysit with your kids? You basically are someone with no principles, which is how we end up. And it's so funny. The people that were on the January 6th Select Committee that seem to have something to hide. I asked the question the other day on social media as a joke, what are you hiding, Liz? We know what she's hiding. She basically suborned perjury, as far as we can tell, from Cassidy Hutchinson, one of this 26-year-old aide in the White House. You know how much information 26-year-olds in the White House have? Not very much. How much policy decisions do they have? Minimal. She apparently had 3 meetings and 3 sworn testimonies. And on the 4th, after Liz Cheney said, fire your attorney, let me give you a new one, then they hammered out a secret deposition that was done with just 3 people in the room, or 4 people. I guess it was Hutchinson and her attorney, and then Liz Cheney and one other person. And they got her to say the things about Donald Trump, about trying to grab the steering wheel, which there's no way, if you've ever been inside, like there's no way that she was able to do that. And why would she know? She doesn't know anything. There's a trend of this stuff going out right now, a trend of people that are either making things up out of whole cloth or taking things that were obviously a joke and playing them up to be something more serious than they were. That's, I think, where this literally Hitler piece comes in. We'll talk about that in a minute. How about the real scandal that's kicking out there? Because there is a really wild scandal. We talked about it the other day, how there is information that has been leaked from NGA, the National Geospatial Agency. And NGA does like maps and satellite imagery of military movements and potential troop movements and places where you can make infill into various different things. They plan out for all the stuff that they might need to do, that our U.S. intelligence service and or our military might do. And there was a leak of where Israel's pieces are. Now, you don't have to love Israel to know that somebody deciding to favor Hamas, to favor Hezbollah, to favor Iran, and show where Israeli troops are massing, that's a real serious problem, because it's not about Israel per se. It's saying that you're going to take your top secret security clearance and you're going to leak things that you have no right to give out. I'm pretty sure they actually raided Donald Trump's house on the thought that he might do that because he was possessing the material, right? They sent HRT in, the big mish, to go and raid Mar-a-Lago. You can't do that. You can't decide to pick Iran as a winner and give out intelligence information that is classified top secret, not just because of what it is and what it shows, but also because of the sources and methods that it takes to find that stuff. That's the big issue. And so there's this brewing scandal, which luckily National Review covered the other day. The Biden-Iran scandal gets worse. We got to go back in time a little bit, because one of the people who is thought to have leaked this information is someone whose name we've heard before. And here she is. This is going back about a year, almost to the day. Is that right? October 20th of 2023, Mary Kay Lynn wrote this: top Iranian Pentagon aide keeps a security clearance despite spying for Tehran accusation. She was accused of this. Her name is Ariane Tabatabai. Is that right? Tabatabai. You're seeing her picture on the screen. She was accused of being part of an influence op inside the Pentagon for the Iranian government, that she was recruited and operating as an intelligence, either co-optee or an intelligence asset. She was born in Iran, and she maintains her security clearance. Meanwhile, Garrett O'Boyle does not, by the way. Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin had theirs stripped away. For what? Whistleblowing activity? Because we hurt the feelings of the people that we didn't want to take a COVID shot and we said you're not allowed to break the law when you're the attorney general? Things like that? That we're not going to be part of a weaponized government? That's fine. She was previously a key aide to the suspended Iranian envoy, Robert Malley, whose secret ties to Tehran also sparked congressional uproar. This has been going on since early 22. She's the chief of staff to the Pentagon's Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflicts. Like the kind of thing where we would be on the low-key aiding Israel. That's pretty wild stuff. And it really is. And this is the real scandal, because she's accused of being the person that dropped that NGA information onto Telegram and letting the Iranians know what's going on. Does that make sense? Yes. Because the Biden administration has been so soft on Iran. They've given money, they've released sanctions, they've allowed them to do the things that they're doing. I had some friends credibly tell me that they probably have a nuclear weapon based on the sort of time they've had and the access that they've had to this material and money. They've been funding terrorism for decades against the United States. We've basically been in a Cold War with them since the 1970s when they took over our embassy. And then we're bringing people that were born there in. Let me let you in on maybe not a secret, but an open secret, if you don't know this. The United States State Department, which is our agency of diplomacy, the State Department is 100%, okay, that's an exaggeration. It is 85% or 90% populated by people who were born in the country that we are doing diplomacy with. Almost everybody that sits on the so-called desks, which is the area where they actually handle the issues coming in from each country. If you're at the Ukrainian desk, you're probably born in Ukraine and you're a Ukrainian descent person. If you're on the China desk, you're probably from China. Most likely. When you walk in there, the first language of the people working the China desk is Chinese. It's Mandarin. It might be Cantonese. It might be both. This is like 100% the case. When you go in there and you're blown away because you're like, oh, I was expecting to see a bunch of dudes look like me, but also speak Arabic, dealing with stuff in the Middle East. Nope. You're going to see people from the Middle East. You're going to see someone who was born in Iran dealing with the Iranians, whatever that looks like. It's craziness. That's why when you see things like what happened, you guys are mentioning in the chat, the Vindman scandal, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. The whistleblower, the quote unquote whistleblower activity about Ukraine, it's because they're advocates for the countries they came from. I don't know how we do this. I don't understand how you could have dual loyalties. It's the same problem as having dual citizenship and being in Congress. Shouldn't you have to give it up? Isn't that what the oath of office is all about? That you swear allegiance to the United States Constitution, and there's no other option there. It's the only thing that you can swear allegiance to. And it's the same for the sort of people that come into civil service. I was actually really lucky when I was working Chinese matters for the FBI that my quote unquote linguist, the only one who could actually read, speak, and understand Chinese language and culture, by the way, was like a white kid from a good school who just lived in China for a little while, picked up the language, and wanted to go work for either the State Department or the CIA. He was an absolute rarity. He was a 1 in 10 at best. He was a top 10, top 5%er. Outstanding kid. Really like young and squared away. But it is not common. It is far more common to have like my training agent. By the way, my training agent was born in China. He spoke Chinese until he didn't speak English until he was like 16 or 18 years old. Now, I don't have any doubts about his loyalty to the United States at all. So Lou, I'm not calling you out on that. I'm saying it's bizarre that you'd take somebody that was born, raised in China, spoke Mandarin as your first language, has family members still there. It's the reason why the CIA wouldn't let him come work. And then you're going to come in and work Chinese counterintelligence. That's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. It seems upside down to most people. So that's the scandal we're talking about here. This is being covered by National Review. I'm going to read a little bit of it. The source of last week's leak of U.S. intelligence about Israel's plans to strike Iran, which has occasioned an investigation, isn't yet known. What should be obvious, though, is that there's no individual who has such extensive contact with Iranian intelligence and diplomatic officials who's deferred in the direction of those officials before should ever have been put in a sensitive position in the first place. The Biden administration has basically just ignored the simple rules. This is an ongoing government problem. The Biden administration is not the first, but they might be the worst. The most glaring example of the questionable handling of Iran's portfolio is Biden Iranian envoy Robert Malley's continued employment in the State Department, and of course, this aide that we just showed you. Possibly worse than Malley's appointment is that of Ariana Tabatabai. I think I'm saying that correctly. An academic turned State Department and Pentagon official. She was part of the now infamous Iran Expert Initiative, a program used by Tehran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs to cultivate relationships with foreign academics who could carry water for the regime. Guys, this is what all counterintelligence investigations are predicated on within the FBI. All of the ones that are non-criminal are based on this. It's academics, it's people in business, it's people that are part of NGOs. They are being corruptly influenced by the home country that they have like either ethnic ties to or spend a lot of time in. Then they come into the United States. This is things like the Confucius Institute, which I believe has changed names. The Chinese go out there and throw tons of money at academics, most of them either ethnically Chinese or Americans who are left-leaning and are willing to take money because they're unscrupulous. And what these people do is they take American money and then they take the foreign money. They use the American money to create like incredible capabilities that are using U.S. supercomputers at publicly funded universities. Then they turn around, they go to somewhere in China, they set up an identical laboratory and they mirror their work. It's called tech transfer. They mirror that work and they collect all the cash that the Chinese have given them in grants or whatever else. And they do whatever they want with it. It's very standard stuff. And corrupting academics seems to be the most easy route in because there's no law being broken. Most of these people don't have access to anything classified. And then the problem is they turn around and they duplicate the work they're doing. And sometimes they get government positions. They're often in think tanks. They're often hired on by lobbyists or they're actually taken into government stuff when the right regime pops in, and that is the Biden administration. It's really terrifying stuff. I mean, like, it's the single biggest national security threat that you'll find, I think, which is probably how you have this kind of thing. People that are advocating for the countries that they're supposed to be experts on, they're also just like soft on, is more accurate. They ran this yesterday. This is an article that you're seeing on the screen right now. CIA analyst who triggered Trump's first impeachment asked, was it worth it? Do you know what? Go F yourself, dude. Not a whistleblower. Advocating for policy is not covered under the Whistleblower Protection Acts, particularly at the CIA. I've been going over this with Zach, who's a Border Patrol agent that recently spoke in the James O'Keefe documentary, which is weak compared to Ryan Maddow's. If you guys want to go and see one of the two, go see Ryan Maddow's. Don't waste your time with James O'Keefe. James is an actor doing a weak job. But we've been going over the whistleblower protections for both the CIA and for the rest of the government. The CIA fits into the same category as NGA, as NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, or whatever it's called. The FBI fits into there. The Office of the Directorate of National Intelligence, these things. There's a couple of different, like what they call IC, intelligence community groups, that fall under a very different thing. And that's what the CIA analyst, Sarah Mello, who they don't name in this piece, by the way. That's how pathetically stupid the Washington Post is. But then if you're in the rest of the government, you have almost the same. You just have a little bit like different cutouts. You actually have a little bit broader things. As long as you're making an allegation of rule, policy, or law being violated, you can be a whistleblower, and you can bring it to Congress or you can bring it other places. What you can't do is disagree with a policy decision. It actually states it right in the law. It's 5 U.S.C. 2302 and 2303 for the CIA. You cannot disagree with the way that somebody is doing the job, particularly the person that runs the executive. That's what they get to do. They set the foreign policy. And if they want to lean on a foreign nation, it's every bit within their right to do so, which is what Donald Trump did. And then you had the testimony that happened. Vladimir Zelensky didn't come out and go like, oh, yeah, we felt really pressured. He was like, no, we didn't feel pressured. And Donald Trump was acquitted in the impeachment. But the Washington Post is still going to carry this water. Why? Because Donald Trump is literally Hitler. Because he's the worst thing that's ever happened. So the CIA analyst asked, was it worth it? A whistleblower's lonely stand upended his career and put his life at risk. Give me a freaking break. He's a damn hero to the people on the political left. He got to go hang out with a bunch of Congress people. Do you know how many Congress people want to hang out with me or Steve Friend or Garrett O'Boyle or Marcus Allen? Like, none of them. They never want to hang out with us unless they think they're going to get on Fox News for a few minutes. They're not out there making backroom deals. And we have more information than this asshole did. Oh, man, I shouldn't have done that. I try not to swear. It pisses me off. It's so freaking stupid. And this is written like a puff piece you've ever... Let me just give you the taste of it. The young CIA analyst waited anxiously for Fiona Hill to pick up her phone, rather. He had dialed her, he recalled, because he wanted to hear a familiar voice and make sure he wasn't doing something colossally stupid. 5 years later, Hill's memories of the call are still vivid. The CIA analyst's voice, it sounded uncharacteristically emotional. The annoying clattering of the Frappuccino machines inside the Starbucks where she was waiting for her morning coffee. Ugh! This is called atmospherics in writing. It's such drivel. This is the kind of nonsense that we get out of the Washington Post. This fawning lie. And then, because all of this stuff has been basically working up to the point, we get this nonsense from The Atlantic. Trump is literally Hitler. This is The Atlantic's headlines from yesterday at 3:38 p.m. Eastern Time. Donald Trump is literally Hitler. DJT is the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler, written by some dummy named Jeffrey Goldberg. What's funny is they actually changed the headline because they must have realized how embarrassingly stupid that is. And they changed the entire first paragraph. They issued a rewrite because that's how dumb it is. But look, Donald Trump's head coming out of the back of Adolf Hitler's head going the opposite direction. Two faces like the Roman god Janus with two faces on the same head. And so they had to change it. Trump, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had. And then the mainstream picked it up. So The Atlantic ran it and CNN ran it. Everybody's going to talk about literally Hitler. What kind of nonsense world are we living in? What a bunch of unserious fools. They're doing the meme. In April of 2020, Vanessa Guillon, a 20-year-old Army private, was bludgeoned to death by a fellow soldier at Fort Hood in Texas. The killer, aided by his girlfriend, burned Guillon's body. Guillon's remains were discovered 2 months later, buried in a riverbank. What does that have to do with anything? What in the world does that have to do with Donald Trump? Guillon was the daughter of Mexican immigrants and grew up in Houston, and her murder sparked outrage. Fort Hood had become known as a particularly perilous assignment for female soldiers. Really? Really? No. Shortly after her remains discovered, Donald Trump invited the Guillon family to the White House. And her mother sat beside him. Donald Trump spent 25 minutes with the family on a television recorded interview. I saw what happened to your daughter, Vanessa, who is a spectacular person and respected and loved by everybody, including the military. I can help you out with the funeral. I'll help with that. I'll help you out financially, he said in a follow-up. The family said the military is going to pay for it. Like, none of this has to do with literally Hitler. What is this allegation all about? Here's a piece of it. It comes from CNN. I had to go digging deeper because there's none of this stuff makes any sense. Apparently, John Kelly, the former chief of staff for Donald Trump, said that he fits the definition of a fascist and that he prefers a dictator's approach. We're just living in the upside down. Here's what he says. He told The Atlantic. This is what this piece was spawned out of. He confirmed to The Atlantic that Donald Trump said he wished his military personnel showed him the same deference that Adolf Hitler's Nazi generals showed the German dictator during World War II. Do you mean Bismarck's generals? John Kelly said when he spoke to The Atlantic. I mean, I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was or anything about the Franco-Prussian War. That's probably true, but maybe not. I said, do you mean the Kaiser's generals? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals. And he said, yeah, Hitler's generals. That's what Donald Trump sounds like to me. When I think about Donald Trump, the ultimate troll, the guy who went and took a day to go hang out at McDonald's and was slinging fries because Kamala Harris said that she worked at McDonald's. I think that Donald Trump is probably the guy that's going to literally say, I wish that people worship me the way that Hitler's generals did. The Trump campaign said this is absolutely false. Donald Trump never said that. Imagine the possibilities that he did say that. First of all, I think it is false. I think it's completely made up. Also, it's funny to note that John Kelly said, you know that Rommel killed himself because he was in a plot to try to kill Hitler. And it's like, okay. The odds are is that this never happened. This manufacturing fantasies out of whole cloth, knowing that the left will eat it up. How do you know they're going to eat it up? Because they've been eating it up. Here's the Atlantic story. Here's another Atlantic story, which is just a couple days earlier. This is from like October, the 15th or the 18th? Trump is speaking like Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. He's all the bad things. It's so crazy and stupid. But the reason that I know they're going to lap it up is because they always take him literally, but they never take him seriously. And that was the advisement previously. You take him seriously, but you don't take him literally. He says all kinds of funny things. And you could actually see a situation where he was like, people should have treated me more like Hitler. Like those people really had respect. And he's joking. And John Kelly lacks the sense of humor to get it. How do we get here? Right? How do we end up so stupid and toxic? I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. Before we do, and I'm going to let a fantastic spokesperson for toxicity and political discourse discuss it. Before we do, let's say thanks to our buddies at Patriot Coolers. Not toxic. Fantastic products. You can drink non-toxic water out of it. I better turn this the right way. PatriotCoolers.com. Here is my major. This is my 40 ounces of fluid. This one has icy water in it right now. You know what I like most about it? I'm telling you, it has a gasket here. Maybe everybody does this, but it has a gasket for the straw that comes with it. And then you also have the ability to flip it up and drink out of it. PatriotCoolers.com. Use the promo code KYLE to get your own. If you look in the show description, wherever you're watching us, except on YouTube where we're banned, wherever you're watching us, you'll see a click and it'll take you to the Kyle Seraphin collection. So you can literally just go bink and click one click, add it to cart and buy anything that's already going to pre-have the badge. It's going to have our flag, whatever your favorite logo is. I like them both. I like them both kind of equally. It's actually hard for me to decide, so I like having the options, and I've got a little bit with each. You guys can get your own customized tumblers from PatriotCoolers.com, and don't forget, if you're in the market, if you're starting to do some RVing, or if you're planning to keep food for a longer period of time and you don't want to go out and buy a big generator, check out their coolers, which are fantastic. The hard-sided cooler, the 50-quart, is the one that we have in our minivan, and I use it literally every time we go to the grocery store. We used it yesterday. and pretty much all of our groceries needed to be cooled. It's still hot in Texas, so it's still useful. All right, let me give you a great spokesperson for political toxicity, and we'll give you a little chance to think about what you think. You tell me. How do we get so toxic?
I don't understand how we got so toxic and just so divided and so bitter. And I get why sometimes people just don't want to pay attention to it. And we all have friends like that. We have family members who just like, it's all a circus out there. I get that.
He gets it. You know what? How did we get so toxic? Maybe it had something to do with this. A little bit longer clip than normal, but coming in from Tom Elliott and a great super compilation of Barack Obama being toxic.
One of my few regrets is my inability to reduce the polarization and meanness in our politics. You've seen an extreme faction of the Republican Party that has shown again and again and again that they're willing to hijack the entire party and the country and the economy.
Same way members of Congress and the House Republicans in particular don't get to demand ransom in exchange for doing their jobs.
That ideological extremism and maximalist position is much more prominent right now in the Republican Party.
I think it's somewhat ironic to see some members of Congress wanting to make common cause with the hardliners in Iran. You don't negotiate by putting a gun to the other person's head, or worse yet, by putting a gun to the American people's head by threatening a shutdown.
Think about what we could do if a reckless few didn't hold the economy hostage every few months.
It is not negotiating when I show up at your house and say, give me everything inside or I'm going to burn it down. What we're not for is negotiating with people who have a bomb strapped to their chest. The Republicans have provided a laundry list of essentially ransom demands.
I cannot think of a more potent recruitment tool for ISIL than some of the rhetoric that's been coming out of here during the course of this debate.
They are promoting policies that harm millions of Americans. They're not necessarily cold-hearted. They just sincerely believe that if we give more tax breaks to a fortunate few and we invest less in the middle class and we reduce or eliminate the safety net for the poor and the sick and we cut food stamps and we cut Medicaid and we let banks and polluters and credit card companies and insurers do only what's best for their bottom line without the responsibility to the rest of us, then somehow the economy will boom and jobs and prosperity will trickle down to everybody.
There's more. That's as much as I care to hear right now. How interesting, huh? You notice him saying something about how people in the Republican Party are cozying up to Iran, and then you have this stuff, which was a continuation of Obama's pallets of cash being sent over. Who's cozying up to the hardliners in Iran, if not Democrats? Who's putting them in their administration, if not Democrats? And quite interestingly, I think, Kash Patel's been on board with this stuff. I'm not a huge fan of Bannon's War Room because I just think it's really weird for a grown man to basically spend his life dedicated to another grown man who's older than him that fired him. But it is what it is. People like Bannon, so it's fine. But I really like Kash. And all my conversations with him have been not just productive, like heartening. Because not only does he get it, he understands the threat, but he's also just like a regular dude. Here's Kash Patel talking about this, and he brings up all the names that just popped up in that National Review article. That's the real toxicity, is cozying up to terrorists. And of course, the fact that you're acting like your political opponents are evil and wrong.
But Kash, one more time, give it the infiltration of the Biden regime in the national security state by the Persians.
Iran, the largest global state sponsor of terror, has now the hostage clock is 11 days since Americans have been kidnapped and Biden hasn't done anything. The intelligence failure is intentional. 3 key figures. Robert O'Malley, who, by the way, was the architect of the JCPOA for Barack Obama, was the president's senior envoy, President Biden's senior envoy to Iran. He was suspended. His security clearance was removed by the FBI just a couple of months ago for suspicious activity, which we still don't know why. He empowered and employed Ariane Tabatai. She's the chief of staff for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations, one of the most powerful positions in government. She is an Iranian pro-activist who has access to our nation's most secrets, installed by Robert O'Malley, who has been caught communicating directly with the Iranian Foreign Ministry and asking permission if she should take trips on behalf of the U.S. government. She's still employed. No one has an answer for us. And House Intel has not investigated this. I have no idea why. And then we have Mahar Battar. Mahar Battar, Schiff's former general counsel during Russiagate, the guy who wrote the Schiff memo. This is the guy that wrote the Nunes memo. Has now launched his way up the platform and runs on the National Security Council. Mahar Battar is in charge of Intelligence Operations Office.
There's more to that. I'll throw it up on Locals. You guys can watch that clip. I think it's very good. Cash is great. The thing that I like most about him is he operates like an investigator. He operates like me and the rest of the Suspendables. Whenever we chat, it's like names, concrete actions. Where do these people live? Where are they about? You know, like what sort of place in government do they occupy? What are they doing? Where are the linchpins that need to be pulled out to be able to drop this evil trailer of garbage off the back? So that's interesting. It is nice. It's nice to have people out there that know. It's the thing that I have the most faith. Honestly, Kash Patel is the single biggest reason that I would have any faith in Donald Trump. And I just hope that he ends up in his position. I don't have a lot of expectations for that happening. I still think we're going to get ripped off. I just do. I don't see it going any other way. But if he's Attorney General, folks, strap in. Hold on to your butts because it could get real weird. Okay, speaking of toxicity, which is what we were talking about there, not just toxic by supporting terrorist states, but also toxic in language and in being this fake garbage. We showed you the fake Liz Cheney side by side. Tim Walz is getting in on the action. He's decided to attack Elon Musk. Why? Because we got to attack free speech. We have to. Elon Musk is an enemy because he's a billionaire and he didn't get in line with the other billionaires that we do like, says the Democrat Party. This is a really interesting line of attack. I'm going to play the long form version of it, and I'm going to play a couple of cuts of it, and then I'm also going to show you what we really think about Tim Walz over here at the Kyle Seraphin Show. Let's start with his discussion. I guess it was yesterday or the night before. Enjoy this. That's why the thumbnail is the way it is. It's why the title of the show is what it is. I can't remember a time in our political discourse when we started calling people that supported folks we didn't like dipshits. At least, certainly not the vice presidential candidate hasn't said this. Isn't this beneath the office? Isn't that what they used to try to say? Dignity and blah, 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 blah? I guess not.
Well, look, I'm not going to waste all the time I'm in. I'm going to talk about his running mate. His running mate, Elon Musk. Seriously. Where is Senator Vance after he got asked the simplest question in the world at the debate? Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? And after 2 weeks, he finally said, no, he didn't. That's where he's been spending his time. But that's it. So, look, Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it. Think about it. Think about that. That guy is literally the richest man in the world, spending millions of dollars to help Donald Trump buy an election. Now look, they're saying the quiet parts out loud now because Donald Trump has already promised that he would put Elon in charge of government regulations that oversee the businesses that Elon runs. That's a hell of a buy. He could spend billions to make more than 10 billion on the back end. So in other words, Donald Trump, in front of the eyes of the American public, is promising corruption.
You mean like the kind of corruption where you take someone who works on behalf of the Iranian government in academia and then put them in charge of sensitive intelligence information inside the United States Pentagon? Is that the one? The DOD? The chief of all these low-intensity conflicts and special operations? That's what corruption looks like to me. You know, the kind of corruption that, like, really usurps our national security. I'm less concerned about a guy who's basically showed himself to have bought a free speech platform simply to lose money on it by making it free speech and then see every Democrat crying about it. You're noticing that they want to try to crush that over in the UK. I didn't cover this story, but you guys can look it up. The government of the UK has gone fascistic and they're going to try to dismantle Twitter by crushing advertisers. So that's what real corruption looks like. The idea that he's mad about him dancing, I'm almost positive that Elon Musk is doing one of two things here. There's basically two options. Either Elon Musk is fairly autistic, which seems to be the case, and I think he has admitted to as much, and he just doesn't know how to hold himself on stage. That's possible. Or if you've ever seen Elon Musk's sense of humor, which is actually fairly developed, and it's pretty funny, and it also falls in line with people on the political right, he's also a troll, a lot like Donald Trump does. And I'm fairly confident Elon is making fun of Tim Walz in the way that Tim Walz was actually calling him out. So here's a side-by-side of Tim Walz saying it, and you can visually see Elon Musk dancing around the way that we've seen Tim Walz. Don't worry, I got that video for you too.
Look, Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it.
Yeah, you know it. Are you guys ready? I got 1 minute and 10 seconds of the dancing queen, aka Tim Walz. You saw him jump. He throws his hands. He does a little skip. You tell me, if you live in a glass house like that, if you should be throwing these stones.
You are the dancing queen. Young and sweet, only 17. Dancing queen, feel the beat from the tambourine. You can dance, you can jive, having the time of your life. See that girl, watch that scene, dig the dancing queen. Dancing queen, feel the beat from the tambourine. You can dance, you can jive, having the time of your life. See that girl, watch that scene, dig the dancing queen.
I like the bow like he's a Chinese person in like a karate movie. What's that all about? Why does he keep bowing? Why does he bow from the waist? The only time that you bow from the waist is when you walk in front of the altar and you're in front of the Blessed Sacrament. That's the way that I work. What the hell do I know? I was just an altar server in a Catholic church growing up. Yeah, that's a long clip. There's a lot of those clips, by the way. He acts like a fool everywhere he goes. I didn't even show you the leg clip where he kicks his legs like a freaking rocket. What a weird dude. Maybe that's why you got the clip like this coming out. Tucker Carlson. Don't always agree with Tucker, but I think he's smart. Some of the stuff he's done has been pretty... it seems like it's for clicks. It's for ratings or whatever. But I do think he's being honest in this case. I mean, Tucker answers to himself now, and I think he's a little bit unchained, so he gets to do stuff like this, like talk about, is Tim Walz gay? And isn't that brave? Why can't we talk about it?
Or like Tim Walz is very obviously gay. I look at him and I'm like, well, you're gay. And I'm sure I'll be attacked for saying that. Maybe he's not gay, but he certainly seems gay.
Right. They
And
immediately say, where's your evidence?
oh, I don't have any evidence. I'm just saying the guy looks super, super gay to me. But they're the ones always running on being like, it's great to be gay. Okay, if it's great to be gay, then why is it an attack on him for me to say that? And why would it be out of bounds to be like, hey, Tim Walz, you seem super gay. Are you gay? Have you ever slept with dudes? Like, if you ask that question, you'd be fired from your job.
You're just asking that now. It's very controversial, right?
But why would that be controversial? If there's nothing wrong with it,
right?
Then why is it so offensive to ask that question? Right. I don't like. This doesn't make any sense.
I think ultimately, Democrats.
It doesn't make any sense. Why is that controversial? And why do we know that it is controversial intuitively? I saw another thing the other day. It was like a TikTok video or something like that. It said, how come you see like more Kamala Harris stickers than Trump stickers? First of all, I don't actually see that, but I live in Texas, so maybe that's why. But the people that live in states that are contentious, where that's a possibility, that they said, essentially, you have no fear of someone vandalizing your vehicle if you have a Kamala Harris sticker. If you're a Trump supporter and you see someone with a Harris sticker, you're like, that's an idiot. That's a retard. That's just what's going on here. So you just move on. Like, you have pity for them. Maybe you say a prayer for them. Maybe you hope that they come to Jesus. Maybe you hope that they don't pick up a firearm and hurt somebody, like we're going to talk about in a second. But if somebody sees a Trump sticker, they feel like that's a justification for vandalism. They'll tear up your house. They'll break your windows. They'll set something on fire. They'll drive their truck through the front yard. They'll run into your vehicle. They'll slash your tires. That's an interesting thing. That's an interesting problem. One side seems to have normalized violence in a really ugly way. And maybe it's because of the kind of rhetoric that they keep using. And they do keep using it. They keep saying they want to eliminate guys like Donald Trump. They call him literally Hitler. What would you do to literally Hitler? You'd want to kill him so he doesn't do the literally Hitler stuff. You'd want to close the chapter on him forever so that he could never open it again. Let me give you 2 side-by-side pieces of evidence, and then we'll get into Democrats shooting friends of them or friends of themselves, shooting people in the arm while they're showing their weapons proficiency. Here's Kamala Harris doing the thing.
I think part of what is important in this election is really not only turning the page, but closing the page and the chapter on an era that suggests that Americans are divided.
Yeah. It's not just that bad. It's always projection, isn't it? They say the thing that they think about he's a dipshit when Tim Walz is actually acting like a dipshit. He shouldn't be dancing around on the stage when you've got a guy who dances around on the stage. This makes me fearful because Joe Biden, for as much as he's out of it, he's still theoretically a guy that every once in a while wakes up, wonders where he is, puts down the pudding, and gives an order, and people theoretically have to do it, right? Joe Biden says that, I can't do it now. It's Joe Biden. It's always Joe Biden for me now. He says that Donald Trump wants to send the military to kill people. What sort of dark fantasy world is he living in? And is that what's going on there? Because it seems like it. Here's a little taste of Joe Biden saying crazy stuff. By the way, he is getting worse and worse, too. He's falling. I don't even know if he's going to make it to January, which we also kind of think he'll step down beforehand. If they actually don't rig the election, then he's stepping down and letting Kamala finish out the term.
Or like Tim Walz.
That's not the right one. Where is it? Clip 9. No. Biden. Clip 7. Here we go.
This is a guy who also wants to replace every civil servant, every single one. Thinks he has a right under the Supreme Court ruling on immunity to be able, if need be, if it was the case, to actually physically eliminate, shoot, kill someone who he believes to be a threat to him. I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
What I said was that we gotta, it sounds bizarre, but we gotta lock him up. Oops, don't say that, because my DOJ is doing that. It's trying to. We gotta politically lock him up. How interesting, huh? All right, let's go to the last story. We'll talk about guns for a second here. TV reporter struck by bullet fragment as Lucas Kunce, who I believe is is he a state senator in Missouri? He's a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate. He apparently hit a reporter in the arm with spall. Spall is what happens when you hit a bullet into a hard target. They refer to it as ricochet. We don't really talk about the idea of ricochet. Ricochet actually implies that there's a hard projectile and it continues on in some other direction. Spall is what happens when the bullet fragments break apart and you get a piece of the bullet that comes back. Ricochet, I guess, is not the wrong word, but it's not what we usually talk about. Spall is the thing we worry about when bullets shatter. And they do shatter when they hit things like steel targets. A bullet fragment struck TV reporter who was at a shooting range during a campaign event on Tuesday for U.S. Senate candidate Lucas Kunce, who provided first aid to the journalist. That's the way you do it. Yeah, if you shoot someone, you have to fix it. If you break it, you buy it. Isn't that how we work? Kunce, a Democrat, was at a private residence near Holt, north of Kansas City, when along with former U.S. Representative Adam Kinzinger, an Illinois Republican who's also a Democrat, when a fragment appeared to have ricocheted off the target. Kunce was shooting an AR-15 at the time and was the only person shooting when the injury occurred. That's how you know where it came from. The reporter's name was Ryan Gamboa. He began bleeding from his arm. Kunce spent 13 years in the military and he gauze wrapped it and then he put a belt around the guy's arm. I got some pictures of that too, so let's show those. So here are these idiots. Adam Kinzinger is crying on the side. You've got this guy Kunce applying some kind of first aid. Initially, it looked like he was actually putting a tourniquet on and that he put it below the wound, which is retarded. You don't do that. You put it above the wound. You want to put it closer to the heart. What we say proximal to the heart, not distal. Distal is below the wound. You always put it above. But it looks like he's actually doing what would be referred to as kind of like a direct pressure or a pressure dressing of some kind. It's probably not the way that you would actually treat this, but it's not terrible first aid. Not mad at that one. The guy was able to finish and stop the bleeding, and then they were able to continue on with the assignment, and then he continued to report. But these guys are idiots. And how do I know that? Because here is a picture of that clown who's running for Senate. He's blasting away at targets that look like maybe they're 10 yards away. Here's something, a little trick if you guys don't know this. When you use a camera and you take pictures of your targets, the targets are actually, they look further away than they actually are. The odds are this is probably 7 yards, maybe even closer. This is a 21-foot shot with an AR-15, and he is shooting at steel, and the steel is improperly angled. The stuff on the tree, which does have some hits on it, is angled upward, which is how you send Spall back to the line. You angle it downward, it goes down into the dirt and it goes to your feet. Sometimes you have this stuff actually hit your boots if you're doing this thing and you're doing high volume and there's a lot of people shooting. It's incredibly dangerous. And the recommendation is 15 yards and out is where you shoot steel. You never shoot steel this close because bullets do spall, they do break, even on soft targets that are going to flip over, and it will come back and hit you. It'll hit you in the eye, it'll hit you in the lip, it'll hit you in the chest, it'll hit you in the arm if you're a TV reporter who's hanging out with these idiots. And that's just with pistol stuff. They're also shooting what are basically pistol targets with a rifle at pistol distances, which is terrifyingly stupid. I'm more or less okay with the way that he's holding the rifle, although the magazine well grip is not my jam, not for people who are serious shooters. But whatever, there you go. He's doing the best he can do. He's also hunched down a little bit, which you always want to do. You want to bring the gun to your eye, not your eye to the gun. Anyway, he was an officer as far as I can tell, doesn't really know what he's doing, but nothing compared to this dude. There's crying Adam Kinzinger. He shows you exactly how close they are. And the best part of both of these pictures, which I will dance between here, if you're looking on our video, and this is towards the end of the show if you're listening, so you can come back and confirm it, or you can look on social media. You notice that orange canister ×2 that is about 12 or 15 inches below the muzzle? Let's call it 24 inches. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, the same place where the Spall was coming back and hitting a reporter that was taking the picture? That's freaking tannerite. That's an explosive device. 100 pounds of that, you can blow up an entire structure. You can blow up a building like a barn. There's YouTube videos, knock yourself out and go look for pictures of people blowing stuff up with tannerite. That is an entire probably 1 pound and or 2 pound piece of tannerite ×2 sitting right below where their muzzles are. And then you've got Adam Kinzinger, who thinks he's going to have to handle the recoil by pre-leaning backwards and building a stance like a complete clown show. You want to talk about dipshits? Dipshits are people that use a 16-inch barreled AR-15 with a magnified optic. The lightest version of that optic, from what I can tell, looks like it's either 3 or 4x. He's magnifying a shot that's 21 feet away. I'll take that shot at 50 yards with a pistol. I have no idea what these idiots are doing, but they have no business being around guns. But, of course, conservatives, Republicans, Elon Musk, those are the ones. They're so lucky that a piece of Spall didn't come back and ignite that tannerite because it is pressure sensitive. They're really lucky that they didn't blow their dicks off with this thing. And I'm not saying that in a funny way. Like, I mean that seriously. That's a real possibility if you're shooting that close on steel. Incredibly stupid and dangerous. Just failing. Before we forget, I want to put a little taste of this. We talked a while back to a guy named Dexter Taylor. And Dexter Taylor has become a friend of mine. He's now in prison. He's in Rikers Island serving hard time. The CBS local affiliate in New York City did a great piece on him. I think they did a nice job. Dexter represented himself very well. And I will put the entire thing up on Locals. I'll probably share it on Twitter too, because I want as many people to see it as possible. But Dexter Taylor had an interview done behind the doors. They also grabbed the body cam footage. I think CBS, the local CBS affiliate there, did a really good job of showing what went on. Also, you can see a little bit about what a madman and a gun nerd Dexter Taylor is. So from fools that have no business being gun owners to guys who were responsibly building guns and told that they had absolutely no Second Amendment right to do so. This is the same guy who dealt with a courtroom where the judge said the Second Amendment doesn't exist in my courtroom. He needs to be freed. I will continue to advocate on his behalf. And for anything, if Donald Trump gets in, he's one of the kind of people that I would push for his case to be evaluated and taken federally. I don't know what they can do about it, but I'm very hopeful that one day he'll be vindicated. He knew he was breaking New York law. I just think that New York law is not to be followed. So here's a little taste of Dexter Taylor before we end.
Now to the story of a quiet, studious man from Brooklyn who's doing hard time upstate. He openly admits to assembling ghost guns at his home, which is illegal, but he says his constitutional rights are being violated. Tonight, our conversation from behind prison walls, beginning with the moment his life was upended.
6 o'clock in the morning, you're lying in bed.
Yeah.
What happens?
I hear a bang, and I see underneath the crack in my door, I see like weapon lights flickering back. And I said, ooh.
Hands up.
Get out of here right now!
So I said, hello, hello, hello. I'm Dexter Taylor.
My name is Dexter Taylor. Yo, we know your name. Come on, come on.
Why are you looking for me? Because I still thought they had the wrong house. And then they said, yeah, we're here for you.
Police department, search warrant!
April 6, 2022, an elite NYPD unit forces its way into Dexter Taylor's home in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Come on. Keep a gun on. Keep a gun on that thing.
Why are you looking for it?
Maybe it's the rifles you got laying around everywhere.
We're in a search warrant at this location.
Yes, sir. I know it's probably real, but can I see it?
It was an hours-long search of Taylor's packed home, found loaded with ghost guns.
Good days. You see his rifles? They are dressed to kill.
After a week-long trial earlier this year, Taylor, who's 53, was convicted of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon and other charges. He was sentenced to 10 years for making ghost guns. I met him at Coxsackie Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in upstate New York.
In your home are 13 weapons, yes?
Yeah.
13 guns.
That sounds right.
What kind of guns do we have here?
All of them were either pistols or AR style. Right? I made a handful of Glock style pistols, and I want to say 8 AR style rifles.
These weapons are in the house?
Yes, sir.
They're in a closet? I saw pictures of them. They looked like my suits in the closet.
Yeah,
they're
that's
stored.
right,
They're hanging like on hangers.
That's right, yeah.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Taylor is a self-described nerd and tinkerer. He graduated from Stuyvesant High School, studied biomedical engineering for a time at Johns Hopkins University, and later taught himself how to write code. He says he's been fascinated with guns since he was a child. His goal before the arrest, to develop better weapons systems for the police and military.
I have something to offer this industry. Guys like the guys who broke down the door of my apartment, right? Spend a lot of time tuning their weapons. They might be able to use a system like I came up with. I wanted to work with these guys.
How do you think you got on their radar?
I know how I got on their radar. ATF has been driving search warrants around the country by going up to parts manufacturers and saying, run those lists for me.
Taylor had been under surveillance, flagged using his credit card and home address, ordering parts to build weapons.
All right. I will post the whole thing on the Locals channel. You guys can go see that at kyleserafin.com. If you're not part of our Locals, make sure you look at it. I'll put it on Twitter as well because I think it's a really good piece. He's a super sharp guy. Like, my dude is very cool. Do you notice that? Do you know how many people get raided by the police and are that calm and cool under pressure? He's just ice cold. I love it about him. It's the reason why I would call him a friend, even though we've never met. We've done a couple of interviews. We've spent hours on the phone together. He's just sharp. And these kind of the men, these are not the men that are a threat. You know who's a threat? A cop that says maybe it's all these dressed-to-kill rifles you have. If you're a New York police officer and you're scared of the private citizens in the world, in the United States of America, owning a firearm, give your badge up now. You suck. You are a freaking threat to democracy. You are a threat to the republic that we have, whatever the leftist version that you want to be. You want to call it something. Americans have the right to be armed, period. It is a God-given right. It's not given by the government. And the fact that New York wants to restrict it makes me puke. It's why I would never live there. And any of you that live there, you got Daniel Penny that we talked about yesterday. He just used his arms, his actual arms, to do what men are allowed to do, which is defend people from evil and danger. And then you've got the gay TF out there running down all these different parts manufacturers. Dexter's 100% correct. They roll out and they grab the parts list and the customer list, and then they find out who's in a state that's that would be not allowed to own a certain part. And then they go out there and they get the locals to do it. You'll notice he's in state penitentiary, a maximum security state penitentiary, not federal prison, because there are no federal charges. The gay TF decides to do one thing and one thing only. They push state law enforcement to go after people who have guns because they hate the idea of owning guns. They hate American citizens. They want subjects. It's not all of them, by the way, but the ones who are part of these types of investigations, it's the reason why they showed up at my door. A very, very similar case. I have a lot of empathy for this. I told him to go pound sand when they came to my door. I gave him my attorney's information, and he asked, go ahead and submit your questions to my client in writing. Do not deal with the ATF. Do not deal with the FBI, but you can't stop the state from coming in and knocking your door down when they go after state paper, which is a warrant, under non-federal charges. This is the reason why state and federal have to be pulled apart, why we cannot have these task forces, because they are going for outcomes. They are not going for justice. pisses me off. It really does. Dexter Taylor should not be in jail right now. He should not be in prison. Meanwhile, you got idiots like Adam Kinzinger and this Lucas Kuntz shooting guns next to Tannerite that almost kills someone, including themselves. Absolute fools. All right, let's do a 5-star review. This one's coming from Spotify. I have no idea what song you guys like, but this is from our episode 326, In Contempt. It was written by 12268555774. Don't do that weird numbers on me. It says, I dig the entire podcast, but the song at the end kind of made my morning. Thanks for past and present services, Kyle. Yeah, it's my pleasure. 12268555774. What are you guys doing with these usernames? You're killing me here. All right, another thing that kind of kills me is that my kids are completely nuts, and you guys, if you've never been a father, you're missing out on seeing the funniest part of humanity. Some of my favorite comedy is looking at it from the eyes of a toddler. Everybody wants to play peekaboo with a little kid. This is two toddlers chatting, played by one man, going back and forth, talking about the terror of dad disappearing during peekaboo. There's a period of time when kids don't have what's called object permanence. It's when they can't see something, it doesn't exist, and then it pops back up. That's our supposition. My mother-in-law talks about this because she's a psychologist. Object permanence is why peekaboo is funny and or terrifying and scary. Here's toddlers discussing it.
Mate, I need to catch up on the drama from yesterday. Go on. It was a normal day. I was just playing with Dad, and then he put his hands in front of his face and he was just gone. His face just disappeared. What? Yeah, and I just thought, this is it. I'm never going to see him again. Abandoned in this big wide world on my own. Oh, mate, this is heartbreaking. Yeah, and just as I'd lost all hope and was coming to terms with life as an orphan, the hands are removed. Guess who it is? Was it the adoption agency? No, my dad. He came back. Yeah, recognised him straight away. This is like something from a Netflix documentary. How did he react? Well, I was so relieved to have him back, I just started laughing. I don't know why, I just couldn't stop laughing. It's crazy what the body does in times of stress. Did he explain it? What did he say? He was behaving so erratically, just started shouting, peekaboo. Peekaboo? Is he okay? Like, mentally? It's not actually the first bit of unusual behaviour. Last week, and this will sound insane, he shouted, got your nose, and physically removed my nose and showed it to me. That is not okay. I know, but it was a mad situation because then he just put it back on and it was painless, really. So it was, I don't know, it's confusing. Oh, mate. Where have you gone? It's happened again.
Kids make it all worthwhile. I want to end the show by saying congratulations to Tim Pool. It's out on social media yesterday. I grabbed a clip, and I'll play it maybe tomorrow. He apparently announced that he's going to be restructuring his show. He's going to be taking some time away, and the reason why is because he's going to be a father. But the most important part of that is that he's getting married to his girlfriend, Allison, who's a real sweet girl. I've met both of them. It's what I wanted for them, too, so I'm really excited that they're doing that. I guess she's been pregnant for a little bit. They've been talking about it. He's doing the right thing, which is getting married to the woman that's having his baby. That's a conservative thing to do. There's a lot of people that do it in the wrong order, but do it nonetheless. Good for him. Good for him picking up the burden and the privilege of being a father and being a husband. It's going to make him better at what he does, and I already like what he does. We don't agree on everything, but we don't have to. You guys don't have to either. Good for him. Wish him congratulations if you are so inclined. So good for Tim Pool doing a thing that you don't see a ton of the people that are quote unquote conservative influencers. They kind of live like they're not. But even if he's just a libertarian type, good for him. Good stuff. All right, that's all I got for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. As weird as it is, try to stay away from Democrats with guns. Don't get shot. And we'll see you back here tomorrow at 0930 Eastern Time for the live show. And for all of you that are listening to us on Apple, on Spotify, and iHeartRadio, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're notified. Make sure you're downloading all our episodes. And we do appreciate it. We'll keep you informed. And we do appreciate you sharing it out there to folks. God bless you. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.